Basically, Rob's really awesome. He knows a lot. He's going to give us a really awesome talk. If you have any questions, let him know. And make them really hard. All right. Rob, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. So this is my slide. No, this is my blog. Look, Ma, no slides. I have nothing up my sleeves. We're going to talk about Git. Our purpose in talking about Git is talking about all of the things that we do bad with Git and how to undo that. So here's my question. What are your questions? What bad things have you done with Git that you want to stop doing?
You really want a tricky question?
Yes.
How do you rebase the root commit? It is possible, by the way. But it just means
Awesome. What else?
So what's the best way to deal with multiple Git accounts? So like when I do commits and pushes and all that stuff, to get it associated with the right account.
Great.
What
else?
You get into like different Git branching strategies, things like inflow. Like what like your opinion on that?
For the multiple Git accounts, can you cover Windows and Linux and Mac? Although it looks like your Windows user primarily as a Microsoft guy.
Mm-hmm.
In respect to GitHub, is there a way to submit a pull request from the command line?
Ooh, that's interesting.
I've been wanting to do that for a while.
I can write a Python utility that'll do that.
And create a cherry, basically. So one of the other ways that I work is I'll create a stream of commits, and then I cherry pick every single one of them back to the developed branch, and then cherry pick and pull request each one individually. So it takes me like 2 hours to.
There's a command that does that, right? That smashes.
That was a good one.
what, rebase? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean a lot of them.
Do you want to
Did I just?
interactive rebase in with that?
There are a lot of atomic commits.
Yeah,
that don't
that goes well together?
So.
That was cool. What else?
How about if you don't have reflogs enabled, like in an old repo, how do you recover from deleting a branch without a reflog? The bad old way.
Upgrade your Git.
Yeah, I haven't had to do that now, but in the past it was, yeah, it was interesting. I'm mainly putting that in there so people know how hard it is to actually lose data with Git. You really got to try.
Yep. Good call.
Actually, hey, here's a great one. How do we unbreak a repo? If we just randomly go into the object store and delete an object, but we have another copy of the repo, how do you unbreak a broken Git repo that doesn't validate?
Use Xcode.
Here's how you do it. This is Git. It tracks collaborative work on projects through a beautiful distributed graph theory tree model. Cool. How do we use it? No idea. Just memorize these shell options and type them to sync it up. If you get errors, save your work elsewhere, delete the project, and download a fresh copy.
Can you speak about artifacts? There is tool like Artifactory. So I know that start reading about something about Git LSF.
Is that dealing with super large files? Because I'm actually interested in that. Like 3 gig files.
That's cool. Yeah.
Nothing you never want to do that with Git.
Yeah.
So Rob, how do I submit a pull request for just some of the commits, not all of them?
Must be all talk.
And the parallel to that one, how do I submit multiple pull requests to the same repo?
Merge tools, like different merge tools.
That's right.
On a pull, how do you actually configure the command line to pull beyond compare up or whatever your workflow is?
They share that right now. Kind of look at that.
Is Kdiff 2 or Kdiff 3 now garbage compared to that? Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's what I used last time.
Yeah, Kdiff 2 does real well for right up until you've used Beyond Compare, and then you're like,
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
yeah. It does okay though. And so, you know, if you're on a really constrained budget, then Kdiff 3, Kdiff 2 goes really well. Yeah, it's $40. What else would you like to know?
How long are you gonna be up? 17 items, man, that's
Yeah.
that should keep you going if
Yeah,
you
if you
only
also
spend 5
do all
minutes
of
on
that
each.
stuff on the left,
Yeah.
about 4
So I made a few things, and tell me if any of these are interesting. How do I install Git? How do I move these changes to that branch? How do I remove and ignore a file from Git because I accidentally committed it and I want it out? How do I use SourceSafe?
I got
Um,
you now. Come on.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, don't. How do I move my source control history to Git? Like, how do I get off Subversion? That one's kind of fun. How do I get back to before I did this? How do I back up a Git database? How do I undo the most recent commit? How do I undo a commit from a while ago? How do I squash commits together? You like that one?
That's super hard. That's super hard.
How do I do a pull request with only some of the commits? How do I pull up the GUI diff tool from the command line? How do I store secrets without exposing to the world? How do I have different username and email for different repos?
Sorry, I didn't work the Wi-Fi up just in case you wanted.
Ah. And then we can talk about different Git clients.
So I would like to see the secret one.
Yeah.
For your undo a commit, are you talking about 20 commits ago you did something and you want to completely wipe it from the
Yeah. You like that one?
Yeah. We've done it like every single time I have to look up.
Yeah, Google it every single time.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna mess with it that much.
So part of what we can do is, if you have a repository that has an issue like this, I'll fork it and do a pull request to kind of get you to that place. Do you have a repo? Does anyone have a repo that you'd like us to play with today?
Linux kernel. Bitcoin Core.
Bitcoin?
Bitcoin Core, yeah, sure.
Yeah, no.
I know in our meetup comments, Brian posted a repo that he has, and we could play with.
Yeah.
I only just started on it and I had an example of me making a mistake on the release with dns.js.org.
You published it with what?
Well, I made an issue with the dns.js.org to when I was trying to get a subdomain.
Mm-hmm.
So I accidentally somehow was trying to commit the GitHub pages to their main. So I want to know how to undo that.
Nice. Is army.js on GitHub?
Yeah, it's on.
Is that the URL that'll get me to GitHub? View on GitHub, nice.
Yeah. And if I backtrack it to the dns.js.org, it'll show where the pull request is. Well, think if you click on this symbol,
This one?
that's not it. Try and
This one?
Oh no, that was what I was trying to work on.
Okay. It looks like you like updating the README. That's awesome.
Use the built-in GitHub editor, does that. It's pretty funny.
Yes. Cool. So let's start here. This is going to be fun. I'm going to fork it into my repository. I love this. Okay, now we can use it. So I want to create a pull request, and so this is going to be fun. I just hit fork, which will make a copy of the entire repository into my account. Since I don't have rights to push to your account, but I have rights to push to my account, I can push to my account. And then when I'm ready, I submit a pull request. Well, what's a pull request? Well, we know in Git I can push and pull. Well, a pull request is I request that you pull from me. I can't push to you, but you can pull from me. So I'm going to post it to my account and you pull in.
That's GitHub specific, right? It's not a Git thing.
Yes. It's GitHub. It's a GitHub terminology, which now the rest of us do it. Git clone that. cdr. Okay. Git log. Wow, that was really unhelpful. Git log -- one line. Online. Git log -- one line. So now I'm down to one commit per line. That's helpful. Git log -- one line -- graph.
Bring that
Can you
window
slide the screen over?
Yeah.
A little bit? You're good.
Need to adjust the projector.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, it's a screen projector prop, not projector.
Bring it over just a little bit. Can't see the graph.
Slowly to the right. Like, there you go.
Okay, graph. Now in this case I have a linear history, so I just have a straight line. But the thing that I'll see in here that I wouldn't see in other places was branches coming apart and going back together, which is kind of cool. Git log -- one line -- graph -- decorate. -- decorate will tell me all the branches. So I can see here that I'm at head. This is my checkout directory. Here's where master is. Here's where origin master is. And here's where their head is. Git branch -v. What other branches do I have? I have none. Ooh, there's GitHub pages. Git checkout gh pages. Git log -- one online one line -- graph -- decorate. Okay, now I'm looking at a very different view. Where's the other stuff? Well, really, I want to show both of those things together, and this is one of the things that kind of bugs me about this view, is I'm only ever looking at one branch or another. I don't have a relation of how these branches fit together. Here's the magic sauce. Git log -- one line -- graph -- decorate -- all. Show me all the branches. So now I can see that the GitHub Pages one is up here and the master one is down here, which is perfect. Now I can see the relation of how those branches work together. Now what I don't see is that they don't have a common head. They don't have a common root node. And that's okay. Git log -- one line -- graph -- decorate all. Git checkout master. Git log -- one line -- graph -- decorate all. I don't see where you committed the one into the other.
Yeah, I just posted where I made my mistake on it was in the dns.js.org.
Okay.
Yeah, I put a comment on the meetup.
Did you create a GH pages branch before you started writing code on master?
Didn't do that right.
Okay. So, I think there's nothing to fix here. Do you agree?
It was on someone else's repository.
Okay. So, I'm going to do bad things.
I noticed it.
Being brave and doing right,
Arguing bad things is a horrible commit message.
Hey, it's better than YOLO.
If any of my devs check that in, I'd track them down.
Okay. So one of the things we wanted to talk about is how do I undo this one? There's a couple of ways that we can do this.
Reset.
What do you mean? What do you want to do?
I want to undo this one, the did you notice this one. That one's wrong. And I'm already over here. So we have a couple of ways to do this, and it gets more and less destructive the more we go. And here's the critical difference. Did I publish yet? I didn't in this case. But if I had, the answer would be different. So let's presume that I did publish. Now, if I had already published this, I need to not break you. I can do lots of things. I can fix the history, and I can make that commit never be there. But then you're going to pull it down, and you're going to merge it right back in. Don't. And then we're going to have this conversation. I'm going to go fix it again. I'm going to push it. You're going to merge it back in. And about the third time, I'm like, yeah. See? Broken. Staying broken. So how do I undo this?
Do you
Git.
want a record of the fact that you undid it, or do you just want it to disappear forever? Because there's two ways to, there's the easy way if you want a record of it, you just git revert,
Yep.
but that'll leave a record of it.
Yep. If I've already published it, I want to git revert. What git revert will do is it will create a commit that is exactly backwards of the other commit. Now I can publish this one, and as you pull it in, you'll just get this as a continuing evolving thing. We moved forward. On the upside, you're fine. On the downside, he still looks like an idiot. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Yep.
Was really cool commit affected by that because you edited the same file, didn't you?
It wasn't. So I'll pop open the file, and I can still see that I've got this. Later I added this. But the thing at the top is gone.
Sweet.
So I like to visualize this in Git extensions. There's a couple of GUI tools, and let's dig more into this. And sadly, They don't believe in big screens. So it's itty bitty, but I switch over into this Git diff view, and I can see on this commit, that's the change. And apparently I trimmed white space. And on this commit, here's the change. And on this commit, here's the change. And on this commit, all kinds of things happened. So I can see that in this top commit, all I did was undo this line. The original file is unaffected. Score. Okay, now let's pretend that I hadn't pushed yet. I want that commit to be gone. All the way gone. No clues. Short answer is it will always exist. You know how you have how accountants have this double entry bookkeeping system, and every time they make this double entry thing, and anything that you do will record Git is like that. It's this double entry bookkeeping system, and your history will always exist. Kind of. Let's come back to that one. So let's pretend that that doesn't exist, and let's rewrite this commit out of it. Git checkout, or git branch, -c, backup in case I do bad things. Okay, so I created a backup branch that just references that node. Git checkout. Yeah. Yeah, I'll do this. 7B12989. Oh, this is really cool. The big panic message! You are in a detached head state. You can look around, make experimental changes, and commit them. Detached head state. I'm in a zombie commit. There's zombies wandering through my code. Detached head. What does detached head mean? Git log -- one line -- graph -- decorate -- all. What detached head says is I have a head that is not pointing to any other branches. So I said Git will never delete the history ever. That's not quite true. What it does is it looks for all of the branches, and it looks for any commit that isn't attached to any branch in any commit in the future that is more than 14 days old, and it will recycle them. It will garbage collect them. So if I do a whole bunch of changes and then I check out of this branch and I go somewhere else, those won't exist. And the reason is because I'm in a detached head state. So I want to get undetached. I am now on a real branch. So now I want to rewind master. So there's a couple of ways that I can do that. Really, I want to pick up master and I want to move it there. Probably right before this commit. Git update refs heads master A3BC166. Power user alert. You can really injure yourself with that. So I said pick up master and put it over there, which is really cool. I didn't do any merges. I didn't do any updates. I just moved master, which is wonderful until you lose work. So why is it ref / head / I just want to specify the branch name. I'm going to pop open the .git folder. Oh, hey, there's a refs folder. Let's dig into that one. That looks familiar. Heads, there was that in the path. Master. A3BC166. Hey, that's familiar. Basically what I said is overwrite the contents of this file with that other Git hash. And so that's why it was ref/head/master, is to get into that refs directory inside heads directory to this master. So I could move unzombie, or I could move ghpages. There's nothing magic there. I could also move tags or remotes or all kinds of really dangerous, scary things. You still can't break Git this way. These branch labels are not durable. We pretend they are because that's convenient to us, but they're not. I just moved that branch label to where I wanted it to be. The durable part is the thing that it points to, the commit behind it, and that is preserved. Yep?
No, I think you covered it. I just want you to kind of beat people over the head with that because it took me like a year or two to realize, like you come from other systems like Perforce, that branching is like this thing, you gotta fill out a form in triplicate, and it's like a massive monumental, like you gotta get clearance and you award. The zen of branching, that what a branch actually is, just really understand it's that file in that folder that simply has a commit ID. That's all a branch is in Git. And once you understand that, a lot of stuff gets really clear and really simple.
So I want to get this, did you notice this commit gone? So I did git checkout master right before it. Now I want to take the other commits that I still want and I want to stick them back on. Git cherry pick. Well, I still want this really cool commit, 34A6F. Do I have to type the whole thing? Yeah. As long as I'm typing enough to be descriptive, if that's only 2 characters, you need to commit more often. But maybe 3, 4, branch name, whatever you need to do to be able to identify a unique commit. I'm going to cherry pick that commit.
What if there are collisions? If you do 3, 4, A and there's another commit that's there, does it ask? Does it
Yeah. It says, hey, that's not descriptive enough. So this is cool. We went apart. The way it was explained to me. Git is not hard when it's fuzzy. It's soft. It's gentle. So I have a git commit. And I have another git commit. And I have another git commit. And I have a whole lot more git commits before and after, but I want this middle one gone. So what I said was, I've got this linear path. And I'm going to take this commit right here, and I'm going to stick it over here. And instead of linking to this one as my parent node, I'm going to link straight to this one as my parent node. That's kind of cool. My commit no longer exists. I didn't need to revert it. I didn't need to whatever. I would need to cherry pick all of the things on top to be able to get back to. There's tricks around that, but let's argue that I would cherry pick it. But now this no longer exists. It no longer exists, but are these commits the same? No, they're not. Their content is the same. So where do we get this git commit number, this DA76EDE? This is a SHA-1, and typically we use SHA-1s for cryptography. We're not in this case. This SHA-1, this git hash, represents the hash of the content and the hash of the parent nodes. Not all the way through the history, but this parent node. So this commit represents these changes and this parent. And this commit represents these changes and this parent. So because these commits have different parents, they are different commits. Therefore, they have different numbers. That's okay. I undid that bad thing. Git push origin master. I get back on GitHub. And it never existed. never is a strong word. It still exists in my repository, and I can still pull up its history. And technically, for 2 weeks, it exists out there as well. But I've undid that commit in the middle.
So if somebody else has that unique commit, would that override yours?
Yes. So I'm going to be that other guy. I'm that other guy. I'm on this master that was. So I do a poll, and I just put it back together. It exists again. Not only that, your fix exists on one tangent, and my undoing your fix exists on another tangent. I am that guy. Once you publish, consider that history to be solid. Consider it to be done. Because otherwise you'll be that guy. So once you publish, then you want to use the revert command. Until you publish, you can use this cherry pick and pick things out of the way. Did we answer that question sufficiently? Where's our list? How do you rebase the root commit? Ask Stack Overflow, because if you need to do that, you screwed up a long time ago. Rebasing is really fun, though, and we talk about that down here.
The tricky thing, I forget, it gets complicated. I don't even remember the exact procedure. Because normally, when you rebase, it will only let you rebase up to the commit you name. But the problem is the root commit doesn't have a parent. So how do you refer to that? It doesn't let you refer to the one you're talking about, and there's this whole complicated thing. You can do it. It is possible to do, but it is kind of tricky and weird, and I wish they just put in a command like, hey, let me rebase. Actually, you know what? I think there might be a command option now. Come to think of it, I think they finally have a thing to say, hey, by the way, this is
Yes.
the root. So anyway.
If you need to rebase the root commit, congratulations, you have reached Git masterdom. You will now be collected. How do I deal with multiple Git accounts? A work account and a school account. So what do I mean by multiple accounts? You know, I've got Git credentials to push to a something, but I'm after that Git history stuff. So in here, not in here, in here, I'm looking at my history, and I can see that you made this commit. Here's your name, and here's, actually, git log, because it's in here, and it's all kinds of goo. So each commit has the hash, and it has some metadata attached to it. It has the date time, it has an author. Yeah, there's a difference between a publish author and a commit author. Sorry, Linus was anal. But I have this author details. It's the name and an email address, by the way. If you want to figure out how to email that guy who has that really cool commit. So I want to be somebody else in this repository. CD git init. So I'm still robrich at robrich.org, but this is a work thing. I need to say robrich at mycompany.com. Well, where do these settings come from? Well, git config, I have no idea because I just Googled the key name. You remember that like hello to Git, you have to type these 7 commands and then you can actually be productive, and they started with git config. So Git has these 3 levels of configuration. You have the local configuration, local to this repository. You have the system configuration, which is user specific, and then you have the global, or the global is machine user specific, and then you have the system, which is global to the entire box. Local, global, and system. And I always get system and global configured because I'm like, global is big. No, global is my user. So global according to Linus. There's an ego. So I created these git configs, and one of the things I specified was -g or global. I wanted to get it into my user profile. Where did that go? So I'm going to cruise over to my user directory. In Windows, it's users and then my username. In Unix, it's tilde. Where did that actually go? Argue with your sysadmin. And I have this .git config file. This .git config has all kinds of really cool settings in it. All the things that I arranged as I set up Git. So auto CRLF, carriage return line feeds, is true. That means, I'm going to push it up with Unix command line carriage returns, and I'm going to pull it down, and as it checks it out, it's automatically going to fix those for me. That's really cool. User.name. Hey, that was the setting name I typed, user.name. And then user.email. It was really cool, is user.name. So of course I typed my domain / my username, and then everyone razzed me for like the first 7 commits. So I could do those command line things, or I could try and replicate these settings in my local Git repository. So I've got my local Git repository right here. Ooh, I should have created a folder for that. Let me go fix that. So I've done everything except commit it. I haven't done that final commit thing. So here in my repository, in my .git folder, I have this config file. Hey, that kind of matches that git config that I found in my user profile. And actually, it is identical. Save maybe less things in it. So we can kind of think of this as like a pancake where I have my base configuration and it may have, whatever. And then I have my next layer, my global, and it has whatever. And then I have my repository specific settings. We could think of these kind of like stained glass. If there is no glass in that hole, then it will look through to the next layer. But if there is something there, then it will use that setting. So in this case, if I want to go look at core settings, I'm going to go look in that one, and then I'm going to go look in this one, and then where's the third one? Down in the bowels of Git, which is really fun. There's a Etsy profile in there too, which is kind of fun. So I want to move the stained glass, the user settings, into my local repository, and I want to change my email. Because of course nobody's going to commit with their real name because every commit message is a single space, or the wiki sounds. Well, in this case, I think my name is fine. I just want to change my email. Oops. So apparently you need to open Excel to do that. Git commit -m. This message is for work. Oh, and by the way, commit is spelled with only 2 M's. Yes. So now instead of being my global account, robrich@robrich.org, I'm now the local account, robrich@evilcorp.com. I've been able to manage those 2 settings differently between the different repositories.
Any strategy to remind you need to set it up? I've seen some stuff when I've read on it of different strategies people have, but there's no real agreement. People mention like throwing in a Git hook that for all your repos that says, hey, you haven't put in a username because you don't have something in the global.
Yeah. Strategies are wonderful and awkward. You got one?
I leave my globals empty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
set it everywhere.
Good call. Leaving your globals empty is kind of nice because then as you commit, it'll say, hey, excuse me. Ultimately, I just have gotten good at setting it. So I have the one that I use the most set the way I want it. And then all of the other ones I know, hey, I'm switching context. Let me go switch it. Yep.
If you had forgotten to update your email
Mm-hmm.
and you had if you had created a commit with the wrong email, how would you change the email?
Good call. Like that?
Yeah.
That second one is, I didn't want to be robrich@evilcorp.com there. I wanted to be, so I pop open my config. I want to say goodco.io, because of course it's trendy to use IO now. And now I've fixed it from here on, I want to go fix that commit. How do I undo a commit? Git reset 4a614. Reset is really cool, and it's an overloaded term. I'm going to show you how to really injure yourself in a minute, but here's the nice way. Git reset some hash value. Git log. That commit no longer exists. Double entry bookkeeping system, it actually does under the covers, but we're not looking there yet. So now, git commit -m. This commit has the right.
So what's in the status? What's in your staging?
What is the status?
Your stage. So your stage has that. What you do.
Ah, you're right. I haven't staged it. Basically, when you reset, it will unstage everything, and it will undo that commit as if you had not staged or committed any of those things. So you're right. It took all that commit. It didn't put it in the staging area. It just marked it as an untracked change. So you're right. Now I need to actually really commit it. And now I can see that my original commit has the original email address, and I may or may not choose to adjust that as well. And my new commit has the new information.
If you have multiple commits where you had the wrong email,
Mm-hmm.
is there an easy way to fix that without resetting all of them and starting over?
Yes. There's a mechanism where you can go reset lots of things. It's kind of involved, and so this is, I don't do it very often. Here's where I usually go Google it, where I run it through git admin, and I say, so rewrite every commit to change these things. And so ultimately, I have my history that does this, and it's going to go back as far as the wrong author exists, and it's going to start rewriting these commits. It's going to say, here's a new commit with the correct author, and oh, by the way, here's that original commit from somebody else who's totally fine, and here's this commit with the correct author, and it's going to rewrite all of those commits, which is wonderful. But now you got to tell everybody else, hey, remember that checkout thing that you had before? Don't merge it back to... And so, that's git admin of being able to, pipe in a grep process that we'll go rewrite those things.
Which command is that?
Git admin?
Oh. But that was git filter branch. Is that a new one?
Yes, git filter branch.
This filter branch, you can do some crazy, crazy stuff. It gets really nuts and complicated. Although it's still.
Yep, git filter branch.
Yeah. Subversion is, so fun reason why you should be using Git, not Subversion. If you need to do the same thing in Subversion, you have to shut down the master repo. You have to dump the entire thing through essentially Subversion's version of filter branch and then load it all back up. So basically no one can do any work. And if you have a large repo, you could be talking hours or days of downtime where no one can use any other
Yep.
repos and do that.
So that was a good question.
So
I like that.
Does the same strategy work if you had already published?
If you had already published, could you rewrite stuff? Probably not. You're going to get into that part where somebody has cloned it and they're going to end up pushing it back together. If nobody's cloned it and you're really, really sure nobody's cloned it and nobody's pulled and nobody's anything, you may be okay. But there's that guy in accounting that's like, you know, the double entry bookkeeper guy, and he cloned it the moment that commit. Consider published things as cast in stone.
Yeah. So why do you think they haven't fixed that? Because there's an easy fix for it to make that not as painful. Really easy fix. All you do is when you rewrite the commit, you put another header in there that says this used to be and then the old number. So it could trivially fix that kind of issue. It's really easy, and I've talked to other people, they're like, oh yeah, that would be easy to implement. They have not.
Yes.
Any idea on why?
Yes.
Won't add that in?
Yes.
Automatic? Oh,
Here's the reason why that will never happen.
okay.
Because Linus runs a dictatorship. This is Linus's product, and it will be the way he wants it to be. Which is why pull request is never going to get into Git. It's always going to be a GitHub add-on thing. So that's awesome. You know, Git is a wonderful product, but we want to think of it as a collection of tools, not as a product. Because as a collection of tools, we can kind of think of it as like Linux command line utilities, and we have these different things that do interesting things. We have rebase, and it has arguments that do things, and we have commit, and it has. But ultimately, when Linus says that's the way it is, that's the way it is. Git branching strategies. Let's come back to that because that's a discussion unto itself.
Just so you know, Rob, I believe next month we're actually going to talk about Git flow and Git branching strategies anyway.
Ooh, that'll be awesome. Next month. Come next month because that'll be really fun. Can I submit a pull request from the command line? No.
That was easy.
Yeah, technically you can. You know, you can rig a Python script that will do HTTP requests, and more power to you, man. Cherry pick versus rebase. Let's talk some more about rebase before I talk about what a cherry pick is. So let's come back to that one. What are all the things that I can do with rebase? Rebase is nice.
Interactive.
Yes.
Wash method.
Favorite command for everyone to bisect.
Before you get into the cool things, what does rebase do in a nutshell?
What does rebase do in a nutshell? Good question. Rebase is one of those commands that like does lots of things. Kind of like reset, and I just realized we didn't get to the other reset. Let's put that on the list. How do I injure myself with git reset? Rebase will do two things. At its core, rebase will change the organizational structure of your commits. And what do I mean by that? So I've got these commits here. And let's put them in linear history because that'll make more sense. Ooh, that commit is unattached now. Detached head! Yeah. So let's pretend we've got this line here. And, you know, that's interesting. But I don't want it in that order, and I don't want that many of them. Really what I want is I want this one, and I want these two together in this one, and then I want this one, and then I want all the rest. So rebase allows me to do that. I can take commits and I can put them in different orders, or I can combine them together. I can change a commit in an interesting way, either to change its commit message or to do other things to that commit. But ultimately, you'll notice that these are separate. These Git hashes will be separate. I've rewritten the history. I've changed the project. Same methodology. Once you've published this, consider that cast in stone unless you can walk around the office telling everyone to go knock it off. But until then, I can rebase. I can do really interesting things. So I've got this repository.
Update ref, I mean, that works, but can't you also do branch -f?
I like to have a separate command that makes my fingers understand that I'm about to do bad things. Yeah, it's really easy, and I go do that, and I'm like,
I just drop branches like crazy, so before I do anything dangerous, I'll just make an extra just-in-case branch, and then I'll do all the crazy stuff. So,
yeah.
less reflog.
Yeah, reflog is cool. Did we talk about reflog?
Not yet. I think it was on the list, but I don't think we did it yet.
Yeah, that's coming up. That's going to be a lot of fun. So git check out unzombie git update refs heads master upstream master git push origin master git branch -d
You got a ton of stuff on the list, but if there's time, maybe cover porcelain versus plumbing. Just the
porcelain
concept.
versus plumbing.
So like the porcelain commands versus the plumbing commands, why they exist and what the difference is.
That's a cool idea. And why do you have to jiggle the handle when you're done? Okay, so, ooh. I undid it, and I didn't have to clone again. That's awesome. So we've got back to where we were. We've cloned it. It's clean, and we want to merge all of these readme.mds together. Git rebase -i for interactive. The thing right before the first thing I want to change. So I'm going to say 96231BF. This commit that says big commit add CNAME. And up pops VI, and I go, what? How do I get VI? Well, so I swapped it with my editor of choice, which edit file, where is font size? View. Well, okay, apparently this is going to be small. Or this is going to be over here. There we go. So up pops all of the commits in order, and then some instructions here about what I can do. What I can do. Move it away from the edge of the screen. So I'm in interactive rebase. I'm adjusting these things on the fly. I can pick a commit, basically use that commit. I can reword the commit message. I could edit the commit. So stop, but let me, adjust the files associated with that commit. I can squash, basically put things together. I can fix up. It's like squash, but discard this commit message. Use the previous one's commit message. I can execute, run a command from the command line. That's pretty cool. Drop or remove a commit. If you remove a line in here, that commit will be lost. I don't need that commit. Boom. Now, one of the things that's unfortunate about this commit is time always moves up. Here's the root, the next one, except for in this view. Time goes down in this view. So I started with this one, and I want to squash 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 this one, and I want those all to be part of this commit that says create readme. I'll make it a fix-up instead. And then at the very end, I'll delete the CNAME. So when I'm done, I will have two commits. I get this the way I want it, and I save this. And I close my editor, which in VI is escape:WQ. VI is awesome.
Force shift is easy if you don't like that.
Force shift?
Because shift is easy.
Shift?
That's such an annoying combo. Well, escape shift is easy.
Yes. Score. We now have two commits. One that says what I did here, one that says what I did there. So imagine you're climbing up this, you're rock climbing, and you're climbing up this rock face. How often do you want to put the carabiners? Do you want to put them once every foot? Do you want to put them once every 6 feet? Do you want to not use them at all? In effect, how far do you want to fall? Well, the answer to that question is different than how many carabiners do you want to show your friends? Each git commit is that carabiner that you're sticking in the wall. Stick them in every hour. Then when you're ready to publish your stuff, interactive rebase, squash them down together into something that's meaningful, and now you can publish that content to the rest of the world. You can't do that in regular client-server-based version control systems because as soon as you commit, you simultaneously publish. One of the beautiful things of a distributed version control system is that commit is separate from the publish. I can commit lots of times. I can do all of these experimentations, and when I'm done, I can interactive rebase them back together. I can squash them.
So to understand this, so the part on the right side pretty much is in the repository, in the local repository that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And when you push the button, it will truly just go because the head is in the 9A4.
Yes.
It's only the two tops
Yep.
hashes that is going to be there, right?
Yeah, when I push git push origin master, then everything's going to be great, and the history on GitHub is going to be great, right? Right? So what it says is that I'm about to push something that would be a nonlinear change. It wouldn't be additional commits over the top. Are you sure? Now, ordinarily, I would go, no, git pull, let me merge those things in together, and then let me push. In this case, I did want to rewrite history, so I do want to push -F, force. I want to force push. I want to ensure that that is the change that I got. Now, it's really easy to become that guy, because somebody else who checked out this branch and is going to merge these back together. So quick, run around the office and tell them that you fixed their stuff. git log dash dash one line dash dash graph dash dash decorate dash dash all. It is so pretty. Except for upstream. I can't push to upstream. That's okay. I'm going to only show my branch. Is it gone? Is that history gone, the double entry bookkeeping stuff? No? I got 2 weeks till I lose my toes. In the meantime, I have this command called reflog, because apparently they take out that cat o' nine tails and they flog me for having to. So let's talk about the reflog command. Ref log. It really needs a dash or a space or something. Git reflog. Git reflog. Ref. Ref. We have a ref directory in here. Refs. Heads. Master. Reflog. The log of where our heads have been. Git reflog. Here's all the things I did today, and yesterday, and the day before. So I cloned it, I checked out this stuff, I merged that. That was a mistake. I committed a bunch of stuff, I reverted it, I checked out this, I rebased. Ooh, yeah, I want this one back. Git checkout for FF A1EB. Git checkout dash B. It isn't gone. Git log dash dash one line dash dash graph dash dash decorate dash dash all. It is really, really hard to break Git. Together with reflog and remotes, I can usually get back to anything that I did. Let's reset this last change. 2A6F460 git status. So I have this one file that's modified. I could have many of them. I have stuff in my working directory. Here's how you injure yourself with Git. Git reset dash dash hard.
Seen that in Stack Overflow so many times. I'm like, don't tell them to do that.
RM minus RF star.
Yeah.
It's really funny right up until a noob doesn't know how to use it, and then they run it, and then it's really, really funny. Git reset dash dash hard. This says delete changed files. Well, not delete the changed files, but delete the changes in those files. It won't delete untracked files, it won't delete ignored files, but it will delete the uncommitted changes in this file. Git status. That change is no longer there. Git knows nothing of that change. That change is gone. That's how you injure yourself in Git. That, or go poke around in the object folder.
That you can fix though.
If you break stuff in here, yeah, sorry, your host.
No, actually, you can fix it pretty
If you break something in there, go talk to him and he'll fix it for you.
Technically, you should just be able to do a pull and it should fix itself.
Yes.
If you have another repo. If you don't have other copies, you just host everything forever. Good luck.
So that's a good question. How do I back up my Git repository?
Copy and paste the directory.
That .git folder is your repository.
Wouldn't you use clone bear?
Yes. Clone bear. So I started off my thing by saying git clone, and I put in the repository, the URL of the repository. Dash dash bear. Only for naked people? Well, what does bear mean? Well, typically in Git, I have this working directory construct. I have a .git folder inside of it, and that is my repository. In a bear repository, it has no working directory. It is your .git folder. So it is the perfect way to do a server. So if I clone -bear, I've created this server copy of it. It's probably easier to push into that repository than to clone, yeah, but that's -bear. So how do I back up my repository? I take that Git folder and I put it somewhere else. Don't use Dropbox. Because I use Dropbox and I'm changing things from multiple machines and it's grabbing all those files and it's pushing them up to the server and it's putting back files that got deleted. And so now suddenly my .git folder, my objects folder is kind of screwed. Probably the easiest way to back up your Git repository is to push somewhere. Create a repository somewhere and push there. What's really cool is we've been using an HTTP thing here. Git : / is over SSH. C : / some folder on my disk. Yep.
Does everybody know how to use SSH properly when using GitHub? Because that's actually really important. I see a lot of people just going straight for HTTP every time. Just an idea for a topic.
Yeah, that's a good topic. How to use SSH correctly?
Yeah.
Probably don't. SSH is wonderful because you can do pre-shared keys and you're not sharing passwords. The majority of us, yeah, HTTPS will be totally sufficient for most of our needs. SSH is awesome, and there are some really, really fun mechanisms. I would argue that at the point where SSH becomes appealing, you'll know why. In the absence of that, HTTPS is probably a better move.
Okay. I'm a Linux guy, so of course SSH is everywhere.
Yeah.
Windows not so much.
Yep,
Yeah, so,
and that's why.
I'll kind of agree with that. So if you're just using Git for version control and that's
Mhm.
it, and you're not really doing dev work, then I totally agree with what you said. If you're doing any kind of development work where you're going to have to interact with like production or staging machines or any kind of DevOps,
Yeah.
you should really know how to use SSH for all the other thousands and millions of things it can do and use SSH properly with it.
Indeed.
So
If you're going to do deployments with Git, use SSH. If you're going to do development with Git, use HTTPS. But you could also use UNC paths, you could also use folders. And so backing up to a server is just a matter of git push to some folder over there.
now you mentioned the C: path. Are you going to cover the little gotcha with file : versus C:?
Yes, don't use file colon.
No, wait, I thought it was the other way around. Okay, and there are pros and cons, but when you're backing up, so on Linux, I don't know how it works on Windows, but I think it's the same. If you use file : so if you use HTTP or file : for your path when you clone, it will assume that you want a full copy. It'll copy all the objects over. The two repositories are totally separate. If you give it just a straight up path without file : so in Unix it's just / whatever, it will actually do hard links. So if you do any mucking around in the object folder, you will break all the repositories you cloned and shared data with because they're all sharing basically the same objects. So don't ever use a hard path, just a bare path to back up repos.
And that's why I say use HTTP until you know why you need not to.
I'm talking about
Because you can do really bad things.
We can't do that.
So what about mirror?
Mirror?
Git clone mirror. What's the difference between mirror?
Git clone mirror? I'm not familiar with mirror.
Never heard of that before.
I think that's a convenience thing that wraps Bear and a few other options together.
Would be my guess.
Just do git help clone.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
All refs are copied as it is.
Yep.
So yeah, just a convenience.
So typically when I'm cloning, I have that origin / thing. And so I have their refs over there, and I'm not creating local copies of them if I don't need them. Mirror says, and also, in effect, check out all the branches.
So like when you pulled his repo originally, it didn't have GH pages. If you had used mirror,
It would.
everything.
Right.
Okay.
Well, there's technically one more way, which bundle. It's also a good way to back up.
Yes. But just push, it's easier. Here's the argument, and Douglas Crockford makes it best. You can take a subset of the commands available, the subset of the language available, the subset of the syntax, the subset of English, and you can create a more powerful, more expressive context there. By eliminating those things that are confusing, those things where bugs exist, those things that are awkward, you can create a more powerful, more easy to digest mechanism. There are things on the fringe of JavaScript. There are things on the fringe of Git. There are things on the fringe of C# and Python. When you use those, you're going to alienate your users, and you're going to make it difficult to use your stuff. So don't. And they're cool, and when they're useful, then you'll know how to use them, and they're really, really effective. But as a general rule, avoid those things on the fringes that do bad things because they will confuse others. HTTPS is completely sufficient for the 90% case. When you're stepping off the 90% case, you'll know. Cherry pick versus rebase. So because we looked at cherry pick, because we took something out of the middle, we kind of saw cherry pick. I can take one Git commit and I can move it somewhere else. So in this example, and let's get to a common parent. In this example, I have two different branches, and they have different stuff. So imagine I'm working on this branch, and I go, oh, crap, this needs to be over there. Cherry pick says, it's not quite right, because it doesn't actually say that. What it says is, make a copy of it. This one still exists over here. Cherry pick moves one from one branch to another. These don't share the same Git hash because they have different parents, but their content is the same. The committer is the same. The date is the same. Probably all the things that you care about are the same. So cherry pick will take it from one to the other. Rebase is a matter of rearranging these things. So we did an interactive rebase. That was really cool. Let's do a non-interactive rebase. So I've got my master branch, and it's doing this thing. And I've got GH pages, and it's doing this thing. And I want to take GH pages and put it over here. First off. But let's imagine that it was less about GH pages and more about, I created this cool feature branch starting, I don't know, here. And I did a few commits. Apparently I committed the Wi-Fi. And somebody else did the other stuff. And it's cool to show that branching and weaving, and I kind of like a more linear history. So rather than pulling off of this one, let's pretend that I pulled off of this one. Okay, so we're starting here. Git checkout GH pages. Git rebase. Origin master. And this is going to blow up. Nope. That was pretty cool. It said, okay, so starting here, I'm going to take this commit and I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to take this commit and I'm going to put it here. I'm going to take this commit and I put it here. Awesome. I've taken this content and I've put it on top of this branch. Now this content still exists, the double entry bookkeeping stuff. And if I've pushed this branch, then that's still going to exist. But if I haven't pushed this branch, I've now rewritten my history on top of it. What's really fun is to look at the dates there. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the previous Friday, Saturday. So
I think, haven't they splitted that now, where they have the initial edit, and now they have the commit date, which are also now split into two separate stamps?
yes.
Just like the committer and author?
Yeah, remember at the beginning how we talked about the author date is now two different dates. That's why. It's the date that I wrote the commit and the date that I did all of that mayhem. Okay. So rebase versus cherry pick. We saw an interactive rebase. Sometimes that's easier to get it the way you want. Cherry pick is more about moving things. And then this rebase is really elegant for making that history more linear. Code cleanliness. Does it matter? Maybe. That guy OCD in the corner who comes by your desk every time you did a separate and come back together thing, it really matters to him. Cherry pick versus rebase. Did we beat this up sufficiently? Rebase? Reflog, we talked about that. How do I break Git? How do I break Git? Go mess in the object store. Outside that, you really can't. And this is wonderful. So I'm in the middle of this merge. The merge went horribly wrong. I'm now left with this really ugly commit directory. Git reset -- hard and you're fine. You can't break Git. Storing artifacts. Source control or package managers. So ultimately I get done. I want to publish my thing. So we have different package managers in .NET. We have NuGet. In Node, we have NPM. In Java, we have... Yeah, I don't like Java either. In Ruby, we have gems. We have these package manager concepts, these concepts of putting stuff over there. Ultimately, that's what they're designed for, is to store stuff over there, to version it, and to document dependencies between them. All else being equal, that's kind of where you want to put your content. Well, how do I get a local one within my organization? Artifactory. Artifactory has kind of become the de facto standard here. There are others. And if you're only supporting one set of packages, then you can probably get a specific to your package type repository. In NPM, we have Sinopia. In NuGet, we have NuGet.server. You know, there's ways to stand up your own. Artifactory will do all of them. So in times when I want to go really poor man's, I can say, well, I have a place that stores stuff. It's called Git. So I'm going to take my built content, and check it into something. There's benefits and drawbacks to that. And here's why. Dealing with large files. So oftentimes when I'm committing these build artifacts, they're big. And every time I build, they're very different. So though Git does its best to try and only detect what changed, when you have binary stuff and they're big, it kind of goes, eh. Well, that double entry bookkeeping thing, the history of whatever, I need to be able to check out to a particular version somewhere in time and have the correct answer. Which means it needs to store every big binary blob in source control all the time. Which means your repository is this big. Which means cloning the repository takes this long.
A good example is if you're building an installer that's 100 megs from a bunch of source code. Yeah, I've seen people check that in every version, and pretty soon we have a 7 gigabyte size Git repository with
Yes.
a megabyte of code in it.
Yes. So the short answer to how do I version big binary files? Don't. It is a database. You store data in the database. You store big blobs out on blob storage somewhere. And so ultimately, when you have very large files, there's a tool called Git File Sync, I think. Git File something. It's an extension to Git where it will rewrite that big thing into a blob out there. And that means you need to run around to all the devs installing this plugin. Find a package manager. Find a disk somewhere. Find another way to version your big things. So how do I get the big thing out of my repository? Double entry bookkeeping thing. It's going to be in there forever. ultimately, you could do some creative cherry picking or rebasing to try and get those big things out of the repository, but probably your repository is going to have that history in it. And so, yeah, that's
I
where
was gonna
you're
say,
getting
when I
to.
had that 7 gigabyte issue, we just redid everything. It sucked big time, but
Yeah.
we just stashed that away, started over with the new working.
Git, check out the latest thing,
Yeah,
delete my .git folder,
Yep.
create a new repository up on the server, commit it. Of course, the commit message has to be initial commit as if I started the entire project right now. And now we start from there. I lost all my history.
The old repository mark sucks or whatever because it kept checking us in.
Yes.
If you don't want to ditch all your history, you can do a filter branch.
Yes, filter branch can get you there with history.
Get like a new, well, you can have it, you can write, actually get crazy sophisticated and do whatever kind of transformation you want, and it'll filter a single branch for the entire repo history,
Yep.
and it will give you kind of a, basically it will be a new repository. It won't be
Yes.
the same one anymore.
So speaking of that, is there a way to change the status of the repo to read only for the one that they sought?
Yes.
Just don't accept any pushes.
As you're setting up each server, you can mark its status. Git has no built-in authentication mechanism. GitHub, Bitbucket, all the other source control systems have authentication stuff bundled over the top of it. So I go into my configuration manager, my settings manager inside GitHub, and I say, read only. Or I go SSH into my server and I set all of the file permissions on my bare directory to, take off write. How successful is that? Probably I take my Git folder and I stick it up on S3 and I say,
Yeah.
no touchy. And in 6 months, if you need it, yeah, go pull it down. But in the meantime,
Make sure you zip it up right when you do that too, because it'll actually compress those redundant files pretty well. LZMA does a good job.
yeah.
Forget.
Say you had that 7 gigabyte repository of redundant object data because Git just gives up on large files. If you were freezing that somewhere, use 7-zip or something, use LZMA compression.
It won't pack large files? You
Git?
can tell the GC?
Git has a threshold where it'll say, this
Oh.
file is huge, I do not want to try to diff this. It's clearly binary data. And that's why it grows very quickly. I can have 100 meg installers with only slight changes. Git will not put in the effort
Really, it won't pack
to
those?
try to find the differences.
Okay, and again, they haven't pulled over the chunking from above yet.
And I don't think Linus Torvalds will ever allow that to happen. He's going to say, this is primarily text data, maybe some binary stuff that's small, like libraries, but nothing big. If you told him you're putting installers in your commits, he would kill you.
Yeah. There's one other, if you kind of want references to the files in there, are you going to cover Git Media or Git Annex or any of those?
If you need to do go hire that guy.
Or me. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
super into that too.
Okay. How do I submit a pull request for just some of the commits? So I've created a repository right here called PhantomJS2. And it is a fork of this repository. I'll come back to that one. Yes, I do. Yes. Now I'm watching the graph go apart and together. And so what I want to highlight here is that there's this ext branch. And then way down here, there's this origin branch. Now, they actually came from different forks of the project, and I wanted to do a pull request to each one. I can only have one Phantom.js repository in my GitHub account. When I said clone, it didn't say into what name. So technically this says forked from here, but my other one is from here. So how do I do multiple pull requests to the same repository, or how do I do multiple pull requests to different repositories? So this is really interesting. Git remote add ext git log. Oh, I didn't fetch from it. Yes, I do. Ask me that in about 20 minutes. So here's master, and there's my pull request, and that's pretty cool. But I wanted different branches to go to different places. So I published the two branches. One branch is master, one branch is, oh, that's that one. One branch is master, one branch is ext, and I did each of my changes in different places, and I said, okay, now I want to do pull requests. New pull request. This is pretty cool. So it says, okay, from where? And I said, well, okay, let's start with this guy's master. And I want to compare it to this branch. So now I'm creating a pull request specific to that branch. So I can make different changes into different branches, and I can create a pull request for each branch. Well, this is really cool, because now as I evolve my thing, because somebody's going to say, yeah, but can you just, and this guy's going to say, yeah, but can you just, I saw the latest tweet. It said, the first tab in a pull request is called conversation. It's called conversation for a reason. We conversate here. So I'm going to create a pull request for each branch in my local repository to one or more remote repositories. I can now create multiple pull requests, each from a different branch. I can create different issues on their repository based on the branches that I have in my repository. So how do I create a pull request with only part of the things? Ultimately, I get to this part where I start separating the things into different pieces. So let's get really invasive into this repository, and let's say I want to change that line, and 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 so I have 5 or 6, oh wait, those are 5 or 6 different bugs. Those are 5 or 6 different conversations that I want to have. If I commit them, they're all going to be in one place. They're all going to be one conversation. They're all going to be, I want to separate those into different commits. Probably on different branches. I want to use Git extensions for this. So up pops Git extensions. And I have my working directory. I have my staging area. I have my commit message. And I have a diff of this file. I want to stage this one. And I want to stage this one. I messed that up. I want to stage this one, and I want to stage this one, and I want to stage this one.
This process is pretty specific. extensions or GUI environment, correct?
Yes.
I've seen Gitkraken could do this, but I
Yes.
have no idea how. I've showed it and I always forget.
The command line is git add -- patch.
No, that's
And if you can figure out the syntax once you're in patch, yay on you. Use a GUI tool.
And the fun thing is when you do a patch in reverse, it gets real interesting.
it's weird.
It's very weird.
Here, take some of my git patch. So here's my changes. Here's what I'm going to commit. Here's the things that I didn't commit. I've committed part of a file, git patch. Find a GUI tool to do this and rig it up with aliases. Ask me about aliases.
What about aliases?
So here inside my git config, either local to your project or global to your box, you can put lots of aliases. So I said commit -ext. I want that to be a thing. I want to be able to type git commit -ext. Well, why wouldn't I do this from a shell command alias? Sure, yeah, more power to you. I wanted to do it in git.
It's easy. In Windows, it's terrible, isn't it?
Yes, in Windows it is awful.
I do the shell thing.
Stupid show
Yeah.
binary
Then I don't have to
path.
type git in front of it.
Because I renamed the git command to TFS. Because I don't want to deal with this git scary open source stuff.
Because I run status about 1,000 times a day, so status is
GS.
S. No, it's just S. That's how much I run it, it's S.
Which works really well until my hands have been sitting on my keyboard for a while and S, enter. Oh crap!
Status, man, it's non-destructive, I don't care. Clear
Yes,
it.
but you know, when R is git reset -- hard,
That you don't do.
Never.
You deserve what you
Yeah,
get.
typically you would only ever do read-only type commands for your aliases unless you're
Yes.
probably insane.
and that's why I use here git alias.
Yeah, these are all read-only.
So you can create these from the command line, and create one to get yourself this, or just come in here and do stuff. The bang means go execute a shell command. So what I said is start --b git extensions.exe commit. So if I run git extensions commit from the command line, it pops up in that commit window.
//B, does that get replaced?
That says start a subshell.
Oh, that'd be fun to leave stuff in that.
Yes. So I also have these ones that don't have a pound in front of it. Git log --one line --graph --decorate. Wow, I can't believe I typed that so many times. Git hist. Score. Aliases are immensely powerful. Aliases are really dangerous. You can teach yourself how to create a completely alternate universe that, by the way, uses Git under the hood because you've shimmed in all of the commands from your old system. And now your fingers just know how they work, and everything is great, and you're actually typing TFS because you renamed git.exe, and you are not using Git.
Can you alias multiple commands in one alias? Say
Yes.
commit and push at the same time.
Yeah.
Is it just semicolon.
And or semicolon, yeah. So here's my pitch. Use aliases to make your life simpler. Build up the muscle memory first. If you're standing at somebody else's computer and you can't work because you don't have your Git aliases, you might be a redneck. Use aliases liberally, though. So this is a hist. This is a hist2. I wanted to change my date formats in an interesting way, apparently. Hist20. Oh, by the way, I have -20 at the end, so it'll only show me 20 commits. That's kind of fun. ls ignored. You can do all kinds of fun things in here. Once you've built up the muscle memory of the commands that you like, alias them into the commands that are simpler for you to type so that you can be more productive.
Although I gotta say, terminal aliases, you should be doing that for not just Git, but for everything if you're using the command line a lot. And you should have a properly configured shell. For the love of God, don't try to just do everything in SH.
And that's only really available nicely on Mac and Linux. I have yet to find a really nice alias thing on Windows. There's the bastardized bash shell that you
There's
can
an
get, but
easy
it's,
solution for that stuff.
You can define aliases in the
you can.
yeah.
Quite Seriously. There's actually a new shell I haven't tried. There's ZSH, which is awesome, and O by ZSH makes it stupid easy to get a really, really good config going without having to read a ton of books. But there's a brand new one called Fish that is supposed to be like awesome right out of the box with all kinds of goodies. You don't have to hardly configure anything.
PowerShell has good support for Git now with Postgre.
Emacs, VI,
Oh yeah?
Emacs, VI, Emacs. Tastes great. Oh wait, no. So I've got two branches and they're wildly different and I want to merge them together. What branch am I on? I am on master and I have a bunch of these other ones. Git merge ext. Yes, I did mean origin. Now ideally what a merge will do is just kind of build this new node up top that will kind of put these things together. Now in this case, these branches were so divergent that we'd changed the same file in very different ways. So I'm trying to build this commit up here. And it's kind of going, you know, I need some help. I don't know what you meant by that. And so what it said here was, hey, auto merging failed. Can I have some help? Git merge tool. How did I configure my merge tool? Well, I cheated because Git extensions is awesome. And I went into Git extensions and I said, tools, settings. And here in the Git config section, it says, what's your merge tool? And I said, that one. And it built for me this really awesome, almost incoherent command line of doom, passing in various command line arguments. And I'm like, I don't know. You know, ultimately, if you're using Unix, go read the book. So ultimately, I've got my merge tool. I've got it installed, and it does interesting things. So, you know, I could pop myself into VI and look at the 17 arrows going either way and finally go, fine, I don't care, and commit it anyway. And then, you know, John is going, you broke the build again. Git merge tool. One by one, it will walk into each of these files and it'll say, here's the file that I'm about to do. Here's where you came from. Here's where you're going to. No. The middle one is the base one, the one that we both started with, this node. The one on the left, is the one that we were coming from, the one that's local on our machine. And the one on the right is the remote one, the other guy's branch, the one we're trying to merge in. So we can kind of look through it and we can go, you know, here we made similar edits, or maybe it's just a white space thing. This is kind of important, so it asked for help here. So I'm going to say, you know, I want you to take this one. And we can cruise down for a while. What's really cool, next conflict. Skip all this boring stuff. Next conflict. Okay, so here's something. Well, I want this one. Next conflict. I want this one. No, actually, what I really meant was var phantom.js equals some bool require. It's a code editor, man. Edit your code. I cruise down and I go, okay, you know, I'm going to cheat and go take this entire side over here because, and I close this and it goes, would you like to save this thing down here? Yes, I would. And it goes, okay, that file's solved. Next up, beyond compare rules, man.
I will say, in the spirit of what you said earlier and not relying on external tools, Git itself does a really nice job of putting little merge markers in your file, conflict markers.
Yes,
And
yes it does.
Not too bad to merge it without a merge tool, but get a good merge tool, use that.
Yeah.
Kid, if
It's really nice to have really powerful tools that do stuff for you. And it's really nice not to have them because, you know, when you stop bashing your hand with a hammer, it feels much better. Yeah, Git does a good job. GUI tools do better. If you're SSH'd into the server and you can't have GUI tools, learn how to use the command line as well.
Although I have had some really tricky merges a handful of times where it's actually easier to merge it in a text editor.
Mhm.
The merge tools get so freaking confused that it's easier just to manually move stuff around in a good text editor.
Yeah.
So it's rare, that's very rare,
Yeah.
but it does happen.
It is, and the command line is incredibly powerful.
Beyond compare cross-platforms, is Windows
Yes.
specific? Okay.
Windows, Mac, and Linux. $45 gets you the version on your platform. $45 gets you a version on your next platform too.
It looks a lot like JetBrains has Git integration, and
Mhm.
it works and acts very similar to this.
Yeah.
But they're a lot more expensive.
And KDiff2 does okay with this
Yeah.
construct, but
K3.
KDiff3. But if I'm clicking on, I can't do like this and then that.
Yeah, it feels
I-
like a clunky-based utility like most of the free stuff out there.
Right.
I can't tell from back here, does it do subline differences?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where was that line where I found that? Oh, it was in the previous file. Let me find one where the project didn't totally diverge. What's hilarious about these is I'm like, guys, pull request. You don't need to fork and keep your project separate forever. Having to pull request into both your versions is kind of weird.
One other thing, you mentioned the white space thing, can you show off -B inference for diff?
Yes, -B is awesome, ignoring white space. We don't have time to do it, but it is pretty cool.
Okay, you should put it down on your own. -B, there's what, 2 or 3 other variants that have very subtle differences? It'll save you so much madness.
How do I store secrets?
Don't. Technically, you should never have input credentials in your version control. That is a bad thing
Yes.
to do. And you
That
will
is not the question that I wanted to ask.
special place in hell for doing
The reason I asked that question is, how do I set up my project so that I don't commit those in my project and still use them?
Good call. I like that question even better. How do I create,
Okay, do it in
How do I-
15 minutes.
yep, 15 minutes. How do I create a strategy such that I can keep secrets and not get them into my source control system? It's a double entry bookkeeping system. As soon as I commit it, it will be there forever. I love those posts on Stack Overflow that says, you need to change your password now. Because you accidentally commit your password, it is in there.
Or your AWS key, which is hilarious because they launch Bitcoin miners instantaneously.
Yes, your AWS key, your private key, your Facebook app secret, your OAuth tokens. Yeah. These are the secrets that we want to keep out of our version control system. How do I version them? I don't store them in version control. There's a couple of strategies. First off, let's talk about how do I get them into my project so I can use them within my tool of choice. I pull up IntelliJ or I pull up Visual Studio and the file has to be right there. But it has secrets in it. So I've got this, I'm going to break out of this because CDR. So here in this project, let's pretend that I really need secrets.json. That really needs to be there. I really don't want that in my repository. So I'm here in my project and I say git status, or I'm here inside source tree and I'm looking at this thing and it says, hey, that file is changed. I want to add it. Let me add it. No. Add file to gitignore. Here inside the gitignore is various things that I'm excluding from my repository. Secrets.bin, star.user, star.suo, star.key, log.txt, log directory, anything in a bin folder. You can build this gitignore file to be exactly what you want. You can ignore and add all of the things to make it just exactly the way you want.
Quick sidebar, super quick. There's a tool called gitignore.io. It has autocomplete. You just say, I'm using this ID, this programming language, this build utility, and it will spit out a pre-configured
Yes.
file for it. I've used it so many times.
And also some text editors, I think, will give
Oh,
you
yeah.
some of that.
Yeah.
Like, you initialize it.
And also, you can come in here to GitHub, and you can say, I want a new repository.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And in the process of choosing a repository, it says, what language are you using? Here, let me create a gitignore for you. Add to that. What license would you like? Let me add a license.txt to your project. So I want MIT, and by the way, this is a C# project, so
The only reason I use gitignore.io over this is the fact that you can add multiple languages. Say you have a multiple language repository. You don't have to do this and
Right.
other ones down the road.
yeah, a lot of IDEs have this built into.
Yeah.
Ultimately, craft your gitignore to be exactly what you want, and probably, like all the wacky config files that you don't know what they are, you're going to start a project, you're going to go to the old project, you're going to grab your gitignore, you're going to copy it into place, and that's going to be perfect.
Is there a global gitignore where you can say absolutely never ever try to include this in anything?
Yes, there is a global gitignore. Here's why you should never use it.
Okay.
I don't have it on my machine,
Yeah.
so I'm going to drive you nuts.
Well, no, I'm saying in particular for maybe the private key dot format. That's applicable across all boxes or something. That might be important.
The private key, there are things like this that are applicable across all projects.
Yeah.
But the moment that I put it in the global spot or even in the system spot, it's specific to my box. And so it's global to all of my repositories, all the things that I work with. But the moment we hire a new guy,
Yeah, he'll do it.
he's going to commit it because he doesn't know any better. So anything that you can put in each repository will apply to all the users that use that repository from now on. And so all else being equal, find these types of things, these global things that need to apply to all users, and stick them in the repository.
Yeah.
Or stick them in a repository that is the machine setup script. Hi, welcome to this company. Here's your laptop. By the way, pop open this command line and run this, and it'll put all these files on your box. The moment that you start having these kind of magic things that exist over there, the moment bad things happen. So I've chosen to ignore things. Now, from now on, they won't get in my repository. But I'm an idiot, and I committed it anyway. This list is not, you may not commit this. This list is, I will not add this by default. Here's my pitch. Spend a lot of time in your commit window crafting your commit. This is where you create your finished product. Yeah, you were coding for weeks and all of that is cool and all. This is your finished product, your commit. Get comfortable with it, look through all of the diffs of all the things. You're probably going to see that thing that you forgot about because it was 3 a.m. and you didn't actually finish it. Craft your commit there. Ignore the things, get comfortable with that. Once you're done, then you send it up. So I'm an idiot. Git log. I've got that secret in my box. Now I'm going to go, but I really want it gone. Well, how do I get it gone? Well, it's in my gitignore file. And here in I committed my gitignore file. I really, really want it gone. Ooh. Double entry bookkeeping system, your secret is in there. So how do I get my secret back out? Step 1, change all your keys, do not put them in the file. Step 2, let's go get rid of that file. You may want to reverse those. You may want to get rid of the file and then go build it differently. So it's in the repository, and if I change it, if I modify it and I go to commit, I come back here into my commit window. That's not it. That's still not it. It's going to tell me that file changed. I'm lying.
It'll ignore it even if you've already added it at this point.
Yeah. Oh, good call. So I really want it out of my repository. Step 1, I am going to delete or move this file out of the way. Ooh. I'm going to get brutal. I'm also going to remove it from the gitignore temporarily. Okay, so now it's, ooh. I'm lying. Did I not actually commit it? My ignorance has saved me from the world.
Just use a time machine to trick yourself into not doing it. You're okay.
Yes. Let me try this again. So every Stack Overflow post says git commit -a m, meaning stage them all at.
Don't do that. Learn to love the cache. You can use git-like subversion. You really should not.
Yes. You can make git be lots of things. Don't. Okay. Git log. So now that's actually in my repository. Diff. Now let's try this again. So I've committed it. And then later I created my ignore file. Oh, that was pretty cool. Adding your .git repository to your .git repository.
Super cool. Like, amazing.
Yeah, Gitception. Okay, so I've got it in my repository. Here's my secrets. I'm now ignoring it. That wasn't what I was looking for. And so I deleted it, I moved it out of the way, and now I can see that, hey, it wants to delete that file. Now, ordinarily, when the file was in the directory, it was still in the directory. I'm still versioning it. I'm still changing it. So I moved it out of the way. I'm not going to commit this hide secrets one, but now I've created a commit that removes my secrets. Now, because I moved it, I can now move it back. Did I not ignore it correctly? That'll learn me to type fast. Haha, I had quotes around it. That's awesome. So how do I remove secrets from the Git repository? We did two things. The first is we ignore the files going forward. The second is we specifically have to delete the files out of the repository. And third, here's the important part, go change your password. Yes, really. Yes, it did get out. Go change your password. So I've got my secrets. I've ignored them. But it's still in the project. Visual Studio or IntelliJ can still see it. Eclipse can still use them in the normal way. But they're not part of my repository. Well, that's really cool, but now you go check out my repository and you can't use it because secrets.json doesn't exist. Now we have a documentation problem. How do I teach you how to build this? How do I get it so that you can easily get to the point where you can create this repository? There's a couple of options. I can create an example config file that's documented in elegant ways, and I can say, okay, step 1, clone the repository. Step 2, remove -example from this file name, and then modify it for the secrets. Alternatively, we can have a private repository that has all of those secrets in it, and I can clone that repository instead. In ASP.NET 5, the command is called user secrets, and so I can take this file, and it's not a real file, it's a symlink over to that spot over there, and I can version that spot differently. So there's techniques like that to try and keep secrets out of your repository, and techniques for now how to make it powerful enough for others to use it in elegant ways. The short answer, though, is given that double entry bookkeeping system, your secret is still in the repository. You can try and rebase it out of the way. If you've published, your secret is gone. You must change your password. Yep.
And just to reiterate that, there was a meetup at Early Warning Security Company. They do fraud detection. And it was about DevOps security. If you think no one's looking, that's a pastime of hackers and security guys. They search for certain things that look like they're secrets in GitHub all day long.
Yeah.
So as soon as it's in there, guarantee you several hundred people have it as soon as that commit hits the server. So yes, you need to change it immediately.
Yeah, I met a botnet herder at DEF CON who that's all he did. He just sat and watched GitHub pushes until he saw AWS keys and then launched Bitcoin miners, the most expensive system he could launch on their
It's
credit
not
card.
a maybe. If that gets pushed, it's definitely compromised. 99.999% chance it's compromised. So.
Yep.
So Rob, you mentioned how to fix this in ASP.NET 5.
Mhm.
Your options for previous versions. Web config's got a lot of stuff in there, including like database connections, and so you don't want your database connections, but all the rest of the stuff like how to set up my IIS server right and what stuff, you kind of want that in the web config, so you have to go to it.
So technically, the config secrets, those should be handled by your deployment system, like something like Ansible or SaltStack.
Awesome for deployment. How do I do it in my development box? So in .NET Word, you have to have the web, or your web config controls quite a bit of stuff of how your project work, not just like database connection. It could be, I want to turn on Windows authentication for my IIS server. I want to turn on debugging, all kinds of stuff. So
Inside your web config, for each setting, you can say, this node isn't here, it's over there. Connection string config source equals, that's the name of the file name that contains my connection string. The cool thing about app settings, and I don't use it in this project, but you can say file source here rather than config source, and it will actually layer them in. That's unique to app settings. But with all the other ones, you just have to say, this node is in that file. So I then have I have the web.config. I have the web.connection.config, and I have the web.connection.config-example. And then in that example file, I say, make it look like this. Change these to match your thing. And so, yeah, the first time you check it out, and we have this 5-minute conversation about, but all these files are missing, I can't build. Have you renamed them yet? But I can't rename them, all the build is broken. Take out that example. No, don't commit deleting the file. Copy the file, and then once you create the web.connection.config, you're totally fine.
Quick question.
Yep.
Not that I do it, but what if you have a private repo at GitHub
Mm-hmm.
and you have API keys in there?
Mm-hmm.
Still recreate API keys, or are they safe enough because?
If you have a private repo and you will keep it a private repo forever, you're okay. In a year, when you decide to open source this project and you forgot that a year ago you checked in that file with the key in it, it's still in your history even if you deleted the file.
So when I've seen it in like a corporate thing, or even just a small, medium-sized business developer shop, they just run their own Git server. They have a NOS that has the .git folder that has their secrets. They never actually push it to the cloud unless it's like encrypted to hell or something. Because you have to trust GitHub, and that GitHub's not going to get compromised. And anyone with access to that private repo is also not going to get compromised when they access GitHub from their home computer. That might be filled with malware.
Isn't there also Git crypt? You can store stuff in encrypted Git repos.
So I'm Rob Richardson. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for playing.